My name is Larry, 34 years old, and I have been working since I was 15. Last night at dinner, my parents ambushed me with $70,000 in loan papers for my nephew while my brother sat there smugly. They had no idea. I had already paid off $50,000 in student loans alone without their help, while my brother got his college fully covered and a brand new car. What they also did not know was the one-way ticket in my wallet. If you are watching this, drop a comment letting me know where you are viewing from. Hit that subscribe button and stick around to find out what happened when family financial favoritism finally reached its breaking point. I grew up in a modest neighborhood in suburban Connecticut where most families lived comfortably in middle-class homes with neatly trimmed lawns and two-car garages. My parents, Richard and Nancy, both worked steady jobs, Dad as an insurance adjuster and Mom as a school administrator. We were not wealthy by any means, but we were not struggling either. At least that is what I thought until I got old enough to notice the stark differences in how money was spent on me versus my younger brother Jordan. The first time I noticed something was off was when I turned 12 and asked for a new bike. My parents told me we could not afford it right then. Just 3 months later, Jordan, who was 9 at the time, got a brand new bike for no special occasion. When I asked why, Mom simply said, "Your brother really needed it." My bike had been a hand-me-down from our cousin, while Jordan always seemed to get new things. By the time I reached high school, the pattern was impossible to ignore. My school clothes came from discount stores and garage sales, while Jordan wore brand-name everything. I needed new soccer cleats for the team, but was told to make do with my old ones for another season. 2 weeks later, Jordan got top-of-the-line basketball shoes, despite only playing casually with neighborhood kids. When I turned 15, I decided to take matters into my own hands and got my first job bagging groceries at Peterson's Market. I worked weekends and 3 evenings a week after school, carefully saving most of my minimum wage earnings and using some to buy my own clothes and school supplies. My parents seemed almost relieved rather than concerned that their teenage son was working so much while trying to maintain good grades. "It builds character," my dad would say whenever I looked exhausted from balancing school, soccer practice, and work. "You will thank us for this life lesson someday." Despite my busy schedule, I maintained a 3.8 GPA and made the varsity soccer team by junior year. Jordan, meanwhile, bounced between hobbies and sports, quitting when things got difficult, with my parents continuing to fund each new interest without question. When college application season arrived in my senior year, I applied for every scholarship I could find, staying up late after work shifts to complete essays and forms. I managed to secure a partial scholarship to State University, covering about 40% of the tuition. Excited, I shared the news with my parents over dinner, expecting them to be proud and perhaps offer to help with the remaining costs. "That is great, son," Dad said, glancing at Mom. "But you know we cannot help with college. We just do not have it in our budget right now. You will need to take out loans for the rest." I nodded, swallowing my disappointment. I had expected this, but hearing it, confirmed, still stung. That same night, I overheard them discussing a family vacation to Florida they were planning for the following summer, after I would be gone to college. I spent my final high school summer working double shifts, saving every penny for books and housing costs not covered by my loans. I picked up a second job delivering pizzas in the evenings after my day shifts at the grocery store. My graduation gift from my parents was a used suitcase and a $50 bill. Meanwhile, they threw an elaborate 16th birthday party for Jordan, complete with a professional DJ and catering. The day I moved into my dorm room, my parents dropped me off with a quick hug and left within 20 minutes, explaining they needed to get back for Jordan's soccer tournament. I watched from my window as their car disappeared, then turned to face my bare dorm room. My roommate arrived hours later with his parents, who spent the afternoon helping him set up hanging posters, organizing supplies, and then taking us both out for dinner. They seemed surprised my family was not there. "Larry is very independent," I explained with a practiced smile. "Always have been." That first semester, I juggled a full course load with a campus job in the cafeteria and weekend shifts at a local retail store. I ate ramen noodles and peanut butter sandwiches, carefully budgeting every dollar. During our weekly family phone calls, my parents rarely asked about my financial situation, focusing instead on Jordan's high school accomplishments and how much they missed having me around to help with yard work. When I came home for Thanksgiving break that first year, something had changed in our living room. A brand new 60-inch television and sound system that must have cost thousands. When I mentioned it, Mom waved dismissively. "Your father got a small bonus, and our old television was practically ancient. We deserved a little upgrade." I bit my tongue, remembering the textbooks I could not afford for the upcoming semester, forcing me to share with classmates or use library copies. That night, I lay awake in my childhood bedroom, staring at the ceiling, calculating how many hours I would need to work next semester to cover my growing expenses. 3 years later, Jordan graduated high school with a 2.7 GPA and no particular extracurricular achievements. At his graduation dinner, my parents proudly announced they would be paying for his full tuition at State University, the same school I attended. "We have been saving for your college funds since you were born," Mom told Jordan, beaming with pride. "We want you to focus on your studies without having to work like your brother did." I nearly choked on my water. No one noticed. 2 weeks later, they surprised Jordan with a brand new Ford Mustang for his graduation present. I drove back to my off-campus apartment in the same 10-year-old Honda I had purchased myself, with 150,000 miles on the odometer and a passenger window that would not roll down. The contrast could not have been more stark, but I had long since stopped expecting fairness. College life for me was nothing like the movies. While other students enjoyed weekend parties, spring break trips, and the full campus experience, I viewed the university primarily as a place of education and work. My typical day started at 5:30 in the morning with a shift at the campus coffee shop before classes. Evenings were split between the library and my retail job at Barton's department store. Weekends meant double shifts at Barton's plus occasional catering gigs for extra cash. My roommate Jeremy often tried to convince me to come out for at least one night of fun. "Dude, you are going to burn out if you keep this up," he said one Friday as he watched me change from my class clothes into my work uniform. "One night off is not going to bankrupt you." "Easy for you to say," I replied, not unkindly. Jeremy's parents paid his tuition and sent him a generous monthly allowance. Some of us have to hustle. The truth was more complicated than just needing money for current expenses. Each semester, my student loan balance grew, and the interest accumulated, even while I was still in school. I had done the math. By graduation, I would owe over $50,000. The thought kept me up at night, driving me to pick up any extra shift available. During my junior year, I landed an internship with a local marketing firm that actually paid a decent wage. I reduced my retail hours, but still worked weekends, using the slightly better income to start making small payments on my loan interest even before graduation. My academic advisor was impressed with my work ethic, but concerned. "Larry, your grades are excellent, but I worry about your stress levels," she said during one of our meetings. "Have you considered talking to your parents about helping just a little? Many families contribute something to their children's education." I smiled tightly. "That is not an option for me." Meanwhile, Jordan started his freshman year at State, with a fully furnished apartment off campus paid for by our parents. He joined a fraternity, the dues covered by Mom and Dad. He took the minimum credit hours required and spent most weekends partying. During family calls, my parents laughed indulgently at his stories of college fun. "College is about the experience, not just the grades," my father would say. One weekend during my senior year, I came home for Dad's 50th birthday. Jordan drove up in his Mustang, bringing 3 friends for the weekend celebration. As we sat around the dinner table, Jordan casually mentioned he had changed his major for the 3rd time. Business was too much math, and psychology had too much reading, he explained. I am thinking communications might be better. Instead of concern about the extra time and money this would cost, my parents nodded supportively. You need to find your passion, Mom said, serving him an extra large slice of birthday cake. Later that evening, I overheard Dad telling Jordan not to worry about extending his college time. We budgeted for 5 years anyway. Take your time and enjoy it. I stepped away from the doorway, feeling a familiar knot in my stomach. I had taken extra credits, every semester, including summers, to graduate in exactly 4 years to minimize my loan burden. When graduation finally arrived, I had already secured a full-time position at the marketing firm where I had interned. My starting salary was modest, but it meant I could finally stop working multiple jobs. My parents attended the ceremony, taking a few photos before leaving early, explaining that they had promised to take Jordan and his friends out for dinner. That summer, I moved into a tiny studio apartment, the cheapest I could find that was still in a safe neighborhood. Nearly 40% of my monthly income went to student loan payments. I lived on a strict budget, cooking all my meals at home and continuing to drive my aging Honda. Every small expense was carefully considered. A coffee shop latte or takeout dinner became rare luxuries. Meanwhile, Jordan continued his extended college journey, now focusing on communications with a minor in film studies. My parents bought him a professional camera and editing equipment for Christmas that year, supporting what they called his creative exploration. 2 years after my graduation, my parents called with exciting news. They had paid off their mortgage early and were planning a 3-week European vacation to celebrate. They did not invite me, but mentioned they were taking Jordan during his summer break. He needs the cultural exposure, Mom explained. It will be good for his education. I thought about the farthest I had traveled. A weekend camping trip 2 hours from the city with co-workers because it cost almost nothing. I had never been on an airplane. That same month, I had to spend most of my emergency savings on major repairs for my car. The irony was not lost on me. Despite everything, I maintained a relationship with my family. I called weekly, sent birthday and Christmas gifts within my budget, and visited for major holidays. I never confronted them about the financial disparities, partly because I had been raised to not discuss money matters, and partly because I knew from experience it would only lead to defensive justifications that changed nothing. Instead, I channeled my frustrations into work, taking on additional projects and slowly climbing the ranks at my company. Every promotion and raise went primarily toward paying down my loans faster. While friends bought homes or took vacations, I lived with singular financial focus: freedom from student debt. The years after college passed in a blur of professional growth and financial discipline. By 27, I had been promoted twice at the marketing firm, moving from junior associate to account manager. My salary had increased accordingly, though I maintained nearly the same frugal lifestyle. Every raise and bonus went toward one goal: eliminating my student loan debt as quickly as possible. I developed a reputation at work as the guy who never said no to a challenge. Need someone to handle a difficult client? Call Larry. Emergency weekend project, Larry will do it. Late night presentation prep, Larry is your man. My colleagues often wondered about my relentless work ethic. Do you ever relax? My coworker Diane asked after I volunteered for yet another demanding project. I will relax when I am debt-free, I replied, only half joking. What no one at work knew was that I had created a detailed spreadsheet tracking every penny of my loans. Each payment was calculated to maximize the impact on the principal. I lived by a strict financial diet: no streaming services, bare minimum phone plan, thrift store clothes, and a food budget that allowed almost no eating out. My apartment remained the same studio I had moved into after graduation, despite having the income for something better. Meanwhile, Jordan graduated after 6 years with a communications degree and moved back home with our parents. He struggled to find work in his field, taking occasional freelance videography gigs, but nothing steady. My parents supported him, completely covering his car payments, insurance, phone bill, and giving him spending money. He is just finding himself right now. Mom explained when I asked about his job situation during a holiday visit. Creative careers take time to develop. A few months later, Dad called to share that they had helped Jordan secure an entry-level position at a friend's media company. They had also co-signed a lease on a luxury apartment for him, paying the security deposit and first 3 months of rent. "We are so proud of him for landing this job," Dad said, his voice brimming with pride. I swallowed hard before responding. "That is great. I am happy for him." I did not mention that I had been working 60-hour weeks for years, with no parental support whatsoever. By age 30, I had received another promotion to senior account manager, now leading a team of 5 people. The responsibility came with another substantial salary increase, and I adjusted my loan payment plan accordingly. My financial tracking spreadsheet showed that with my current payment schedule, I could be completely debt-free by 34, a full 10 years earlier than the standard repayment plan. That same year, Jordan quit his job after a disagreement with his supervisor. Rather than immediately searching for new employment, he decided to take some time off to reassess. My parents fully supported this decision, both emotionally and financially. "Mental health comes first," Mom said during our family call. We told him to take all the time he needs. Jordan's time off extended to nearly 8 months, during which he traveled to Costa Rica for a month-long spiritual retreat and took expensive photography workshops, all funded by my parents. When he finally did secure another job, it came with a lower salary, so my parents continued supplementing his income to maintain his lifestyle. As my 34th birthday approached, I was on track to make my final student loan payment. Over the years, I had paid nearly $50,000 in principal and an additional $15,000 in interest. I had never missed or been late on a single payment. The night I submitted that final payment, I sat alone in my apartment, staring at the confirmation screen on my laptop, tears streaming down my face. 10 years of sacrifice and relentless work had led to this moment. For the first time since I was 18, I was completely debt-free. I celebrated by ordering takeout from my favorite Thai restaurant. A small luxury by most standards, but significant for me. As I ate, I found myself contemplating my future with a freedom I had never allowed myself before. What did I want now that the crushing weight of debt no longer dictated my every financial decision? The answer had been forming in my mind for months. Solterra Marketing, an international agency with offices in several countries, had been recruiting me for a position in their London office. The role offered significant professional advancement and the opportunity to live abroad, something I had always dreamed of but never considered possible. After my final loan payment, I reached out to the recruiter who had contacted me. 3 weeks and several interviews later, I received a formal offer. The position came with a substantial salary increase, relocation assistance, and the adventure of building a new life in England. After a decade of putting financial responsibility above all else, I was finally in a position to prioritize my dreams. I accepted the offer immediately. The very next day, I purchased a one-way ticket to London, scheduled for exactly 1 month later. I had not told anyone in my family about the job offer or my plans to move abroad. Part of me wanted to simply email them after I had already left, avoiding the inevitable guilt trips and questions. But despite everything, they were still my family. I decided to tell them in person at our upcoming family dinner, an event my parents had insisted was important for us all to attend. Little did I know they had their own agenda for that evening, one that would bring 10 years of unspoken family financial dynamics to a breaking point. The dinner was scheduled for Saturday at Salvatore's, an upscale Italian restaurant that my parents reserved for special occasions only. The formal invitation, and their insistence that both Jordan and I attend despite our busy schedules, suggested something significant was being celebrated. Perhaps an anniversary I had forgotten, or an early retirement announcement. I arrived 15 minutes early, dressed in business casual attire, navy slacks, and a light blue button-down shirt. The hostess led me to a private room in the back of the restaurant, where my parents were already seated, both looking unusually formal themselves. Larry Mom stood to embrace me, her perfume familiar and nostalgic. "So good to see you. You look well." Dad shook my hand firmly. "Son, glad you could make it." "Of course," I replied, taking my seat. "Seems like an important occasion." They exchanged a quick glance that immediately put me on guard. I recognized that look from childhood. It usually preceded something I would not like. "Well, yes," Mom said carefully. "But let us wait for your brother before we get into all that. Tell us about work." We spent the next 20 minutes in comfortable small talk. I shared sanitized stories from the office, carefully avoiding any mention of my new position or plans to move overseas. Mom talked about her garden club, and Dad discussed a new fishing spot he had discovered. The conversation felt normal, even pleasant, which only increased my suspicion that something significant was brewing. Jordan and his wife Amanda arrived 30 minutes late, offering casual apologies about traffic. Jordan looked exactly as he always did. Designer clothes, expensive watch, and perfectly styled hair. Amanda, whom he had married just a year earlier, was elegant in a simple black dress. "Sorry we are late," Jordan said, sliding into his chair without real remorse. "You would not believe how backed up the highway was." "No worries, son," Dad said warmly. "We were just catching up with Larry." The waiter arrived to take our drink orders. My parents both ordered cocktails, while Jordan and Amanda selected an expensive bottle of wine for the table. I requested water with lemon, maintaining my habit of avoiding unnecessary expenses. "Come on, bro." Jordan nudged me. "Live a little. Mom and Dad are paying anyway." "Water is fine," I insisted, ignoring his eye roll. As appetizers arrived, my parents steered the conversation toward reminiscing about our childhood. Summer vacations at the lake house, holiday traditions, and school achievements. It felt oddly nostalgic, almost manufactured, as if they were trying to establish a warm family atmosphere before dropping some kind of bomb. By the time our main courses arrived, I noticed Mom checking her watch repeatedly. Dad cleared his throat after a particularly long story about Jordan's high school graduation party, so he began setting down his fork deliberately. "We asked you both here tonight because we have a family financial matter to discuss." There it was. I took a sip of water, bracing myself. Mom reached into her large handbag and pulled out a manila envelope, placing it on the table beside her plate. "As you know," she continued, "Jordan and Amanda have been blessed with their beautiful son, Tyler." I nodded. My nephew was now 3 years old, an energetic and bright little boy whom I genuinely adored despite my complicated feelings about my brother's lifestyle. "Tyler is gifted," Jordan interjected. "His preschool teacher says he is advanced for his age, way ahead of the other kids." "Absolutely," Dad agreed enthusiastically. "Which is why we have all been researching the best educational options for him." I felt a creeping sense of dread as the conversation direction became clearer. "We have found the perfect private school," Amanda said, her voice bright with excitement. "Westfield Academy. Their early childhood program is exceptional, and it would guarantee him placement all the way through high school graduation." "The problem," Dad continued, his voice taking on a serious tone, "is that the tuition is quite substantial, especially when you commit to the full 15-year program." Mom nodded solemnly. $70,000 for the comprehensive package, but it is an investment in Tyler's future. I kept my face carefully neutral, though internally alarms were blaring. Why were they telling me this? Unless... Dad reached for the manila envelope and slid it across the table, toward me. "We have worked it all out," he said confidently. "Your mother and I will put down the initial deposit. Jordan and Amanda will make the monthly payments. But the school requires a financially stable co-signer on the loan to secure the special rate." He opened the envelope and spread several official-looking documents on the table between our dinner plates. "Given your excellent credit and stable job," Mom added, her voice soothing, as if she were offering me a gift, "you are the perfect person to co-sign these loan documents. It would be such a beautiful way for you to contribute to your nephew's future." Jordan was nodding encouragingly while Amanda looked at me with hopeful eyes. "We would never miss a payment," Jordan promised. "This is just a formality the school requires." "No big deal." I stared at the loan documents, my mind racing. $70,000. The same amount I had spent years repaying from my own education. The amount that had prevented me from traveling, buying a home, or even enjoying simple luxuries for over a decade of my adult life. And they were asking me to risk taking on that burden again, for my nephew's preschool. "The best part," Mom continued, mistaking my silence for consideration, "is that we are all working together as a family. Just like we always have." I nearly laughed at the absurdity of her statement. Just like we always have. When had our family ever worked together financially to support me? I took another sip of water, noticing my hand was perfectly steady, despite the anger and disbelief coursing through me. The weight of the one-way plane ticket in my wallet suddenly felt significant, like a secret weapon. "Have you considered public school?" I asked calmly. "I went to public school and managed to get scholarships." Jordan scoffed. "Public school? For Tyler? Be serious, Larry. We want to give him advantages we did not have." "Advantages you did not have," I corrected before I could stop myself. A moment of awkward silence fell over the table. "What is that supposed to mean?" Jordan asked, his tone immediately defensive. Dad intervened quickly. "Larry, we know this is a big decision, but family helps family. This is about Tyler's future." I looked around the table at their expectant faces. They truly did not see the irony. In their minds, this request was perfectly reasonable. The decades of financial disparity between how they had treated their two sons simply did not register as relevant to the current situation. I carefully pushed the loan papers back toward the center of the table, my decision made. "I will need to think about this," I said evenly, though I had no intention of considering it at all. Jordan's face darkened. "What is there to think about? It is for your nephew. Your blood." The tension at the table was mounting, and I knew the confrontation I had avoided for years was finally unavoidable. "There is quite a lot to think about, actually," I said, my voice remaining calm despite the adrenaline surging through my system. Co-signing a loan is a serious financial commitment. If you default, I would be responsible for the full amount. "We would never default," Jordan insisted, his face flushing. "We are not irresponsible." I raised an eyebrow but said nothing. Dad leaned forward, his expression earnest. "Larry, this is a formality. The school just wants additional security. Your brother has a good job now. The same good job he has quit twice in the last 3 years," I asked. An uncomfortable silence fell over the table. Amanda shifted in her seat, looking down at her plate. "That is unfair," Mom said, her voice sharp. "Jordan is dedicated to his career. He just needed to find the right fit. And he found it because you and Dad called in favors with your friends," I pointed out. "Just like you paid for his college, bought him a car, co-signed his apartment lease, and funded his 8-month finding himself break." Jordan slammed his hand on the table, causing the silverware to rattle. "What is your problem? Are you seriously bringing up ancient history right now?" "Ancient history." I laughed, the sound hollow, even to my own ears. "No, what I am bringing up is a consistent pattern that has continued our entire lives." I turned to face my parents directly. "Do you want to know why I need to think about co-signing a $70,000 loan?" "Because I just finished paying off my own $50,000 student loans. Loans I had to take because you told me you could not help with my education." Mom's eyes widened. "You just paid them off. But you graduated years ago. 10 years ago, I confirmed. And I have been working multiple jobs since I was 15 years old. I worked through high school. I worked 30 hours a week through college, while maintaining a 3.8 GPA. After graduation, I lived in a studio apartment and drove a car with 150,000 miles on it so I could make double payments on my loans. Dad shifted uncomfortably. We always told you we were proud of how hard you worked. You learned responsibility, and Jordan did not. I challenged. You paid his full tuition for 6 years while he switched majors 3 times. You bought him a brand new Mustang for graduation. You supported him financially well into his 30s. That was different, Mom insisted. Jordan needed more help. Why? Because I proved I could survive without it. That is a pretty twisted way to parent. Jordan stood up abruptly. This is ridiculous. You are just jealous that Mom and Dad helped me. Not everyone wants to be a martyr about everything, Larry. I remained seated, maintaining my composure. I am not jealous, Jordan. I am pointing out the hypocrisy of asking me to take on financial risk for your child when this family has consistently prioritized your financial needs over mine. Amanda placed a hand on Jordan's arm, trying to ease him back into his chair. He shrugged her off. So you are punishing your nephew because you think we were spoiled, Jordan demanded. Real mature. I adore Tyler, I replied evenly. This is not about him. This is about the fact that I have spent my entire adult life digging out from under educational debt while you had everything handed to you. And now the moment I am finally free of that burden, you expect me to risk taking on another massive debt for your family. Dad's face had grown increasingly red during this exchange. That is enough, Larry. We are in a public restaurant. You chose the venue, not me, I reminded him. And you brought the loan documents. Did you honestly expect I would just sign, without discussion? We expected you to want to help your family, Mom said, her voice trembling slightly. Like family should. Families should help each other equally, I countered. Did you know I qualified for more financial aid in college, but could not access it because your income was too high? Even though you contributed nothing to my education, do you know how many nights I went hungry because I had to choose between textbooks and groceries? My parents exchanged uncomfortable glances. There is quite a lot to think about, actually, I said. My voice remaining calm despite the adrenaline surging through my system. Co-signing a loan is a serious financial commitment. If you default, I would be responsible for the full amount. And yet you somehow had enough to pay for Jordan's entire education just 3 years later, I noted. Interesting how your financial situation improved so dramatically in such a short time. Jordan scoffed. So, this is what this is about. You are keeping score. I have never kept score, I replied, meeting his eyes. If I had, I would have walked away from this family years ago. But I am also not going to pretend there has not been a clear pattern of financial favoritism my entire life. A waiter approached our table, sensed the tension, and retreated quickly. Amanda, who had been silent throughout most of the confrontation, finally spoke up. Maybe we should discuss this another time when everyone is calmer. That is a good idea, Mom agreed quickly. We can revisit the school issue later. No, I said firmly. We need to be clear right now. I will not be co-signing any loans. Not for $70,000. Not for $70. My financial independence is not something I am willing to compromise after working so hard to achieve it. Jordan threw his napkin on the table. Unbelievable. You selfish? Self-righteous? Jordan, Dad cut him off. That is enough. My brother glared at me. All we asked was for you to sign a piece of paper. You would not have to pay anything. But no, you had to turn this into some kind of dramatic referendum on our entire family dynamic. The fact that you see this as just signing a piece of paper Shows exactly why I would never enter into a financial arrangement with you, I replied. That piece of paper would make me legally responsible for a $70,000 debt if you failed to pay. Given your history with money and employment, that is a risk I am not willing to take. How dare you, Mom, said her voice low and hurt. After everything we have done for you. I looked at her incredulously. What exactly have you done for me, financially speaking, since I turned 18? Or 15, for that matter? The question hung in the air unanswered. I reached for my wallet and removed the plane ticket, placing it on the table. There is something else you should know, I said, my voice softening slightly. I have accepted a position with Solterra Marketing in London. I leave in 3 weeks. The announcement landed like a bomb at the table. My parents stared at the ticket, then at me, eyes wide with shock. London, England, Dad, finally managed. Yes, I confirmed. It is an incredible opportunity. Senior director position, international experience, substantial salary increase. You cannot be serious, Jordan sputtered. You are moving to another country now. I am very serious. The decision was finalized last week. Mom's eyes filled with tears. But what about family? What about holidays and birthdays? What about Tyler? Growing up knowing his uncle. We have video calls now, Mom. And flights across the Atlantic. I will visit when I can. And you are welcome to visit me. But this is something I need to do for myself. So you were planning this all along, Jordan accused. You never intended to help with the school tuition. You are abandoning your family. I am not abandoning anyone. I am pursuing an opportunity I have earned after years of hard work and sacrifice. I folded the ticket and returned it to my wallet. And no, I did not plan to discuss the loan regardless of my move. Those are separate issues. Dad was shaking his head slowly. I do not understand why you would want to leave everything familiar. Your job here is good. Your life is here. My life is what I make it, I replied. And for once, I am making a decision based solely on what I want, not on financial necessity or family obligation. The waitstaff approached again, this time with dessert menus. Dad waved them away. How long have you been planning this? Mom asked, her voice small. The opportunity arose after I made my final student loan payment last month. For the first time in my adult life, I was completely debt-free and able to consider options I never could before. And you did not think to discuss this major life decision with your family? Dad asked, sounding hurt. The irony of his question was not lost on me. Did you discuss with me your decision to pay for Jordan's college but not mine? Did you consult me before buying him a car while I worked 2 jobs to afford a used Honda? Did you ask my opinion before bringing me here tonight to ambush? Know me with loan documents. Amanda, looking increasingly uncomfortable, placed her hand on Jordan's arm again. Maybe we should go. This isn't productive for anyone. Jordan shrugged her off. I want to hear how Larry justifies abandoning his family right when his nephew needs him. Tyler does not need me to co-sign a loan for an overpriced private school, I said firmly. What Tyler needs is parents who take financial responsibility for their own choices rather than expecting others to bail them out. Mom gasped at my bluntness. Furthermore, I continued, my moving to London does not constitute abandonment. People move for job opportunities all the time. The difference is that most families support each other's growth and success. Dad's expression hardened. So this is your final word. You are rejecting our request and moving overseas. Yes, I said simply. Jordan stood abruptly. Come on, Amanda. We are leaving. My brother has made his priorities clear, and they do not include family. Amanda rose reluctantly, giving me an apologetic glance. Jordan, I called, as he turned to leave. This is not about Tyler or you. This is about me finally putting myself first, after a lifetime of not doing so. Save it, he snapped. Enjoy London. As they walked out, I noticed the loan documents still spread across the table. Dad gathered them, silently returning them to the manila envelope. I hope you know what you are doing, Mom said, her voice thick with emotion. Family is everything, Larry. Success means nothing if you are alone. I am not alone, Mom. I have friends, colleagues, and yes, family. Moving to another country does not change that. And perhaps some distance will give us all perspective on our relationships. The waiter approached tentatively with the check. Before my parents could reach for it, I took it and pulled out my credit card. Dinner is on me, I said, handing the folder back to the waiter. Dad frowned. You do not need to do that. I want to, I insisted. Consider it my way of saying that, despite everything I still care about this family, I just need to care about myself too. We sat in uncomfortable silence until the waiter returned with the receipt. As I signed it, I felt a strange mixture of sadness and liberation. The confrontation I had avoided for years had finally happened. And while it had been painful, it was also necessary. As we stood to leave, I hugged my mother, who returned the embrace stiffly. I will send you my new address. Once I am settled, I promised. And my schedule, so we can arrange video calls. Dad nodded curtly, still processing his disappointment. Safe travels, then. I walked out of the restaurant into the cool evening air, taking a deep breath. For the first time in memory, I felt truly unencumbered. Not just from debt, but from the weight of unspoken resentments and unexpressed truths. Whatever happened next, I had finally stood up for myself. The drive home was peaceful, a stark contrast to the dinner's tension. As I pulled into my apartment complex, I realized I did not regret a single word I had said. The truth, however uncomfortable, had needed to be spoken. The week following the disastrous dinner passed in a blur of preparation for my international move. I gave notice at my apartment, scheduled movers for my few valuable possessions, and began the process of selling or donating everything else. Each item I sorted through felt like shedding another piece of my constrained past life. My phone rang several times with calls from my parents, which I answered with polite but brief conversations. They had moved from shock to bargaining, suggesting alternatives to my London position. Peterson Agency is hiring directors, Dad mentioned during one call. It is only 20 minutes from our house. Much better than moving across an ocean. I appreciate the suggestion, I replied neutrally, but my decision is made. The contracts are signed. Mom tried a different approach, focusing on holidays and family traditions. What about Thanksgiving, Christmas? We have always been together. We can video call, I reminded her. And maybe next year you can visit London for Christmas. The city is beautiful during the holidays. Jordan maintained radio silence, communicating only through our parents. Apparently, he had declared me dead to him after the dinner. Dramatic, as always. 10 days before my departure, I received an unexpected text from Amanda. Can we meet for coffee tomorrow? Just us. Need to talk. Curious, and a bit wary, I agreed. The next afternoon, I found Amanda already seated at a corner table in a quiet cafe, looking nervous as she stirred her latte. Thank you for coming, she said as I sat down. Jordan does not know I am here. I assumed as much. What can I do for you? She sighed heavily. First, I want to apologize for that ambush dinner. I told Jordan and his parents. It was a bad idea to spring the loan request on you that way, but they insisted you would be more likely to agree in person. I nodded, appreciating her honesty. And the private school. Was that your idea? Partially, she admitted. Tyler is bright, and the school is excellent. But $70,000. She shook her head. The truth is, we cannot afford it without help. Jordan's parents offered the down payment, but the monthly payments would still stretch us thin. Then maybe wait until Tyler is older, I suggested. Or look at other options. Public school did not ruin my life. She smiled weakly. That is actually what I wanted to talk about. After the dinner fiasco, I did more research. There is a magnet public school program in our district. With an excellent reputation, Tyler could apply next year. That sounds like a good alternative, I said, genuinely pleased she was considering realistic options. The thing is, she continued, lowering her voice, living with Jordan and being around his parents has been eye-opening. The way they handle money, the entitlement. I never saw it clearly before that dinner. I stayed silent, letting her continue. When you talked about working since 15, paying for college yourself, the loans, I had no idea. Jordan always implied you were just antisocial and work-obsessed. He never mentioned the financial disparities. It was not something our family discussed openly, I acknowledged. Amanda leaned forward. Well, I am discussing it now with Jordan. I told him we need to be financially independent from his parents. I have gone back to work part-time, and we are creating a real budget for the first time. How did he take that? Not well initially, she admitted, but I was firm. I do not want Tyler growing up with the same entitled attitude. I want him to value work and responsibility like his uncle does. Her words caught me off guard. After years of feeling like the family outsider for my financial values, hearing them validated was unexpectedly emotional. Thank you for telling me this, I said simply. One more thing. She added, I want Tyler to know you, even from London. Would you be open to regular video calls with him? Just uncle and nephew time. I would like that very much, I assured her. We parted with a genuine hug, and I left feeling a glimmer of hope that at least one family relationship might actually improve with my move abroad. The days before my departure flew by. I hosted a goodbye dinner for friends and colleagues who had supported me through the years. These were the people who had covered shifts when I was exhausted, who had shared textbooks in college when I could not afford them, who had celebrated my promotions and loan payments with genuine joy. They represented the family I had chosen, not just the one I was born into. The morning of my flight, I packed my remaining belongings into 2 suitcases and took one last look around my empty apartment. 10 years of frugal living condensed into luggage I could carry myself. There was something poetic about the lightness of it. As my rideshare pulled up to the international terminal, I was startled to see 2 familiar figures waiting near the drop-off zone, my parents. How did you know which flight? I asked as I approached them. Amanda told us, Mom admitted. We could not let you leave without saying goodbye properly. Dad looked uncomfortable but determined. Son, I have been doing a lot of thinking since that dinner. About the things you said. About how we treated you compared to your brother. I waited, unsure where this was heading. I cannot change the past, he continued. But I want you to know that I hear you. We should have supported you more. We took advantage of your independence and responsibility. We were wrong, Mom added, her eyes watery. We never meant to hurt you or make you feel less valued. It is not about intent, I said gently. It is about impact. And the impact was that I spent my entire adult life digging out of financial hardship while watching my brother receive endless support. They both nodded, actually seeming to absorb my words. We are proud of you, Dad, said gruffly. Making your own way, building your career, moving to London on your own terms. It takes courage. We want to support your decision, Mom added. Maybe we can visit at Christmas, if you would want us to. The olive branch was unexpected but welcome. I would like that, I said. Honestly. My apartment will have a guest room. We shared a somewhat awkward group hug, decades of unspoken tensions beginning to dissolve. Jordan will come around, Dad assured me. He just needs time. Maybe I said not convinced but willing to leave the door open. I should check in for my flight. Go change the world, son, Dad said, his voice thick with emotion. I rolled my suitcases toward the terminal, turning back once to wave before entering the building. Whatever happened next, I knew I was finally moving forward on my own terms. 6 months later, I sat in my London flat, overlooking the Thames on a video call with Tyler and Amanda. My nephew was excitedly showing me his latest art project from his new school, the public magnet program where he was thriving. "Uncle Larry, when are you coming to visit us?" he asked, his face pressing close to the camera. "Soon, buddy. But remember, you and your mom are coming to see me next summer." Amanda appeared in the frame. "We just booked the flights yesterday. Tyler is counting down the days." After we disconnected, I checked my email to find a message from my father with the subject line, "Proud of you." Inside was a photo of a newspaper article featuring Solterra's latest advertising campaign, the one I had led to critical acclaim. My parents had visited for a week at Christmas, a somewhat awkward but healing trip that had laid groundwork for a new kind of relationship, one based on mutual respect rather than expectation or obligation. Jordan had sent a brief but civil holiday card suggesting he might be slowly coming around. As I looked out at the London skyline, I reflected on the journey that had brought me here. The years of financial struggle had been difficult, but they had taught me resilience, self-reliance, and the importance of setting boundaries. The confrontation at that fateful dinner had been painful but necessary to break a lifetime pattern of inequality and enable authentic relationships. Most importantly, I had learned that family connections, while valuable, should never come at the cost of your own well-being or self-respect. True family supports your growth and celebrates your success, rather than trying to exploit or constrain it. The financial independence I had fought so hard to achieve had ultimately given me the greatest gift of all: the freedom to choose my own path based on my desires rather than necessity or obligation. And that was a lesson worth every sacrifice along the way. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family over financial matters? How did you handle the situation? And did it ultimately strengthen or strain your relationships? Share your experiences in the comments below. And do not forget to like, subscribe, and share this video if my story resonated with you. Remember, sometimes the hardest conversations are the most necessary ones for personal growth and healthy relationships. Thank you for listening to my journey, and I wish you courage in navigating your own family financial dynamics.